We can't be so committed to the way things have been or the way things were, right? Whether it be reflecting on our failures of the past, or whether it even be rehearsing the successes of the past. We can't be so committed to them that to the way things were and to how the story was told, that we miss out on the things that can be, right? On the newness that is an inevitable part of the ongoing saga that we call life, right? So herein is one way of analogizing it. You've never seen a tree that was all roots. Have you ever seen an all-root tree? All it had was roots. We didn't call that a tree. We don't even call that a tree. By definition, if all you have are roots, you aren't a tree. Right?
Just roots.
You're just roots, right? We have a word for that. It's roots, right? And if you're just a root and a trunk, are you a tree? No. No, you can't. You're not. A tree has roots and a trunk and branches and stems and leaves and flowers and fruit quite often. Right? So think about that, man. Let that kind of settle in your spirit a little bit. This thing that was once called a seed had to give up being a seed in order to continue to exist. This thing that gave up being a seed and became a root, a sprout, that had to turn into roots in order to continue to exist. It had to then give up being roots and become a stem. But it couldn't stay a stem forever. It had to abandon that and branch out. And after that, it could not just branch, right? It had to start giving off other little stems that turned into leaves, that unfolded, that also made flowers, that then after those flowers had to drop off. It couldn't be committed to the beauty of the flower forever. You had to drop that flower for the fruit to come. This is the nature of life. So then the question is, why would we ever think faith would be different? Right? Because I recognize this is the nature of life, that we can't be so wedded to the past that we can't embrace what we learn new, what we come to know that we didn't know before, is the reason that, teaching third grade in the fall, when I was teaching my third grade students history about the history of democracy in the country, I couldn't repeat what was repeated to me as a child. Right? Now, I'm not going to hold anything against my teachers. I don't know anything about where they were. That might have been all they knew, right? But when it came time to talk about the history of democracy to my third graders, because I knew a little bit more, because our textbook had more in it, right? It wasn't like I had to guess about this thing. If I came to this thing empty, there was something new there, right? And so one of the things that we learned was that Europeans didn't bring democracy to the U.S. Democracy was here when they got here. There was this thing that the French had renamed. You said, well, that your name, Haudenosaunee, that's too hard to say, right? So they said, you're going to be Iroquois, right? And then they referred to what the Iroquois were doing, the 5 tribes of the Iroquois, they called it the Iroquois Confederacy. And it was the first form of democracy in the Americas that we know of, at least North America, right? It was so much that it basically this dates back to about 1200, right? from about 1200 to 1700, right? Basically, what had happened was there was this chief named Hiawatha, who one day was visited by someone he referred to as a holy man, who told him it is important that we as native people, as people here, indigenous people here, that we stop warring with one another, right? We're warring between the tribes, and that's unnecessary. He says, listen, that doesn't mean that you don't have warriors, right? So I'm going to teach you how to do this thing. We're going to count coup, right? Which is basically, it's kind of warrior games, you know, where you can stay up on your skills, but this doesn't have to be how you relate to one another all the time. And then we're going to come together and we're going to come up with this, what in essence, what we would call a constitution, right? That's going to be, this is how we make decisions as a group, and this